All right, tonight we're previewing the budget speech on Wednesday. There are so many gaping financial needs and Eskom takes the cake. Besides struggling to keep the lights on, Eskom currently owes 420 billion rand to its creditors. Now that, to put it into perspective, is close to about a third of the size of the entire budget at around 1.4 trillion. After years of slow growth, South Africa's finance chiefs had hoped that by now there would be more money to go around, but those hopes have been dashed. And the budget will have to remain tight, especially since South Africa has been spending on credit and has been trying to stabilise its debt. To discuss, we're now joined by Chief Economist at Econometrics, Dr Azar Jammine. Thank you for being with us. Azar, do you agree that Eskom is the biggest headache right now?
It's the single biggest headache. There are some other very big headaches that are probably a close second, and that is the problems in tax collections at SARS. It's not high profile like Eskom at the moment, but there's a major leakage that's been taking place.
Isn't that improving though? Can we at least say that?
We're hoping that's improving. We would love to say the same thing about Eskom, but we're not sure about that.
So Eskom, the idea... predictions of the bailout are going around. Some saying 100 billion, it needs 420 just to pay creditors. Is the idea that you need to make this sustainable, to really plug the hole? Otherwise, it just keeps the lights on. It doesn't pay off its debt, it doesn't become sustainable and plan for the future.
You know, even if you try and bail it out right now, it's really just a temporary measure. You've got to go more deeply into the structure of SAA, and the President has given a very broad thing about splitting it up into three ways, but there are going to be huge reductions in costs necessary, and this is where we run straight up against the opposition from the trade unions. The alternative is to raise tariffs, and Eskom has already requested for tariff increases of more than 15% per year for each of the next 3 years. We know that that would be absolutely crippling for the economy, but I'm also not sure that it would result in increased revenues, because you'd get such resistance towards using electricity, people would go for other forms of energy, and before you knew it, Eskom might actually end up with less revenue from that.
This is an intractable problem, and government is under pressure to agree that there will be no privatization and no job losses. It sounds like you think that'll be very difficult.
That's why I think in the short term there is no other solution than a bailout, because either way they...
How much?
Well, Eskom had requested 100 billion rand. That sounds reasonable. That would save it in the region of 10 billion per year in debt servicing costs. When you bear in mind that currently with 420 billion rand debt, Eskom's debt servicing costs are in the region of 40 billion rand, and its cash flows are about 27 billion rand. So the shortfall's about 13 billion. So if it can reduce its interest payments by 10 billion or thereabouts, maybe 13 billion, that would mean a slightly bigger bailout, then at least you've got a bit of sustainability.
And I think it's worth exploring how that will be given to Eskom, so maybe not cash in hand, but a lot of talk of a debt swap. Explain that.
It's a kind of essentially that the government would take on the debt of SAA and put it onto the balance sheet, and you and I as taxpayers would then be responsible for paying the interest on that debt rather than Eskom itself.
So not good for the country trying to stabilise debt levels.
And of course the big question that people ask, which you probably were going to ask me, what does it do to our credit ratings? And it's not at all clear whether that would be received positively or negatively by the ratings agencies.
Is there a concern now that there's only so much money, so Eskom will crowd out spending on other things like infrastructure, which creates jobs? What about fee-free spending? What about the national health insurance that the President himself is backing?
Without a doubt, increased spending on Eskom crowds out everything else. But before everyone gets so pessimistic, there is one simple solution. We've been following the Zondo Commission and hearing about the billions of rands that have poured into certain people's pockets through corruption. If we were able to reduce that or at best even eliminate it, the savings that this country could make and redirect towards even salvaging Eskom are enormous.
So deal with corruption. In the meantime, though, the NHI, a huge funding issue. Tito Mboweni at one point said, the finance minister said, yeah, we can fund it if we raise VAT by 2%. But surely government is not going to touch VAT.
I think it's too much of a hot potato, especially 3 months before a general election. It is the most effective form of taxation. In fact, I was looking today at some of the figures which show that in the case of personal tax, company tax, excise duties, raising taxes in recent years has been totally counterproductive. We've ended up getting less tax revenue, not more.
So in about 30 seconds, what are your tax expectations? Surely sin tax is going up.
Sin tax, unfortunately, I think will be going up, but I've made an appeal for it not to go up because the revenue from some of those sin taxes has actually been declining in recent years because those sin taxes...
So people actually stop smoking?
No. They're buying illicit cigarettes because of the chaos at SARS and the leakages that have been taking place.
All right, very difficult one indeed for Finance Minister Tito Mboweni. That was Dr Azar Jammine from Econometrics looking ahead to Wednesday's budget speech. We take a short break. We'll be back with the news at 9. Stay with us.